same time troubled because we meet and hopefully will exchange at a very troubling point in history, where it seems that those that have, in my judgment, practiced the politics of divisiveness and regression have been emboldened more of late than we've seen probably in my lifetime. I left the United States last evening among the firestorm caused by the present occupant of the White House, saying that, in effect, that people that had non-violently chosen to protest police brutality, police misconduct, and racial disparities in the United States that were professional athletes ought to be fired by their bosses. And he sought to transfer a genuine concern started by Colin Kaepernick around police misconduct and police brutality to a debate on whether or not they were disrespecting the flag. First of all, it was very clear what they had said were their objectives. It was not about the flag, it was about making the flag stand up and represent what the pledge to the flag says, and that is freedom and justice for everyone. And in a typical switch and bait maneuver, Mr. Trump has people discussing the flag rather than discussing whether or not they were upholding what the flag is supposed to stand for when it comes to people of color, people of different classes, and different ways of life. So now he's tried again to switch the debate. Now what is so appalling to me is that he does not own an NFL team, has no power over the NFL, but he will tell the NFL, fire them. Really, what he ought to be addressing is what his administration, which he does have the power over, is going to do about policing and about racial inequality and about income inequality. But the reason I say it's switch and bait, it's because he is able to escape his own responsibilities by playing this, feeding the furor of fire them like he's still on the Apprentice television show, and playing to his crowd rather than acting as the head of state that has a responsibility to address the racial disparities that are being raised. And to add insult to injury, something that President Trump has no problem doing, he calls them sons of bitches. Now, let's remember, first of all, here's a president who has been, throughout the campaign, accused many times of misogynistic language. He's going to call professional athletes, many of whom come from deprived communities, whose mothers, some were single mothers, some married, but had to struggle against all kinds of barriers to get their sons in professional sports, only for the President of the United States to call them bitches. And do it on a world stage. So I come with that in mind. I come with that this is a international problem of xenophobia, of Islamophobia. The new travel ban list he releases today adds another majority Muslim country. The debate is raging all over Europe. And we see, even though Mrs. Merkel has been re-elected in Germany yesterday, that some far-right anti-immigration party picks up seats. So the challenge is whether or not your generation will stand up on which side of the divide and continue to fight toward racial inclusion, fairness, and justice, or whether you will feed into the rise of those regressive forces that want to return us to battles of yesteryear. One of the things that I think every generation has to decide where it is. I think this generation, unfortunately, will have to deal with the question of race and religion and gender inequality and unfairness when it comes to LGBTQ communities. And I think that the challenge is something that I had to face in my youth. I've committed and dedicated my life to dealing with, sometimes making mistakes, but I don't care what you do, you're going to make mistakes. Don't fear making your mistakes. Fear being on the path toward the wrong way. I'd rather stumble headed the right way than to have a perfect walk in the wrong direction. And I think that you must choose young which direction you are committed to and fight that direction. You certainly have the challenge, and you certainly see the forces there, and you certainly are here at a historic institution. The question is, what will they say in history about this generation and this era of those that came to this institution? So thank you. I'll sit down, and I'll now be totally rhetorically beaten up by my host.
What do you have to say to Americans who come to this country because they're so, or leave our own country because they're so upset with what's going on in their own home? How do you tell them to go stand up for their rights and stand up for those that you feel that they feel are being discriminated, when if I do something like that, I'm going to be labeled as a troublemaker, or I'll be, I mean, look what happened in Charlottesville. How do we as a public stand up to this?
Well, I think it's a good question, and I think you've got to decide at some point in your life, earlier than later would be my recommendation, what your life means. Why are you here? Why do you exist? As a minister, I preach funerals from time to time. I preach Michael Jackson's funeral. I preach James Brown's funeral. I preach people's funerals that I had to make up stuff because they hadn't really done anything for me to preach about. And you have to ask yourself, what is my life purpose? And at the end of life, do I want them to say that I ran from problems? I said I didn't want to be called names, and I stood for nothing. Or that I stood for something, win, lose, or draw, that I was faithful and loyal to a purpose and a cause. I think everybody has got to make that choice of what they want their life to be about. I quote off when Martin Luther King was always told. I was a youth director the last year of his life in New York when I was 13 of his organization. But I was raised by the guys that worked with him. And they used to pound that quote all the time. Martin Luther King used to say, if I go into this city, what will happen to me? They threaten to kill me, they threaten to ridicule me, they threaten to disparage my personal life. But if I don't go, what will happen to them? So is leaving the United States going to stop the Charlottesville or increase them because we embolden people because we're not standing up to them? Is not fighting against xenophobia or homophobia or gender inequality or police brutality, you don't make them stop? No, it's going to embolden them. I have in my life been scandalized, I've been stabbed, leading a march, almost killed, spent 3 months one time in jail for nonviolent protests against Navy bombing in Vieques. But I decided very young, I wanted to stand up for what I believe was right, and there's a price for that. But it's a heavier price to end my life one day and say I didn't stand for anything. I ducked every hard question that I had to face, and I might have lived comfortable, nice little house, nice little car, but I never was comfortable inside because I stood for nothing.
All right. really taking a stand against Trump and against the Republican Party. However, a lot of young Democrats feel very disheartened and disillusioned with what they feel is an identity crisis in the Democratic Party. What would you recommend to young Democrats who want to take a stand against injustice but find it so difficult and it's unclear how they start or where they go?
I agree that there is an identity problem with the Democratic Party. I remember in the 90s, they ran toward the center, political center, triangulation. And out of it, they won an election. Bill Clinton became president, Al Gore vice president. But their policies were centrist, welfare reform, omnibus crime bill, which ended up incarcerating a lot of people on low-level and nonviolent drug offenses. I think that we're right back where we are, where we were then. When I started in the Democrats say, we're going after the Trump voters, we're moving to the right. It's the same thing happened in the 90s. First of all, you're not going to out-Trump Trump. Second of all, those people are not going to vote for you anyway. Thirdly, you should not stand for that. It only tells me that you're as cynical as Trump if you will just play to a voter rather than stand up for what you believe in. And I think young Democrats that have that feeling, or older Democrats that have that feeling, need to fight by primarying them or fighting them by going independent. In 2004, after this attempt to move away again, I ran for president. I ran for the express purposes of being in those debates to challenge them. Because most of the people, when I ran in 2004 for president, most of the Democrats on that stage were supporting the war in Iraq. It wouldn't have even been a debate. When I entered the race, and then Howard Dean came out against the war in Iraq, and we made it a debate. But John Kerry, John Edwards, Bob Graham, Joe Lieberman, all of them that were running against us were all for the war. You've got to take them on and not give them a free ride, and either take over the party or build an independent party.
Way for young people to start a career in activism today?
I think the best way for young people to start a career in activism is to choose an issue that you are most passionate about, something that really, really gives you your rise in the morning. This is what bothers you. And start there. Find out what it is, find out everything about that issue, and figure out why you don't think anyone has done enough about it. Like I said, I grew up in the King movement, but what bothered me a lot in the North, because Dr. King was from the South, my immediate mentor was Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was older than me, but he was born in the South. I was from New York, so I was where Malcolm X and others were at. And the issue was different. In the South, it was segregation. You couldn't ride in front of a bus, you couldn't use public toilet, you couldn't drink at a water fountain. You could do that in New York. But police can kill you and nobody do anything about it. Or you can go to certain neighborhoods and get killed and couldn't do anything about it. So I was passionate about racial violence, racial profiling, and police brutality. And that's the issues I fought. Lock into what you're passionate about and dig deep to get all of the facts and figure out a strategy to expose it and bring it in front of the public and sustain it until somebody has to deal with it. So in my career, I've been, quote, theatrical, marching, civil disobedience, and all kinds of stuff. They do cartoons on when I was heavy, or cartoons on my hairstyle. But I'm in New York, Broadway, and Times Square, Wall Street, Statue. So I'm competing against the biggest things in the world. You've got to do things to get their attention. Because it's not like they want to discuss these issues. So I had to find a way to put the issue front and center, knowing I'd get beat up in the process, but they'd have to discuss the issue and sustain that attention there until change comes. Now, you're in a much different environment in Ireland. You don't have to do your hair like me and go to jail to get attention. But you can figure out what will keep your issues up.
Gentleman there.
So in the 2016 election, we saw that Trump got a lot of airtime from the time the media gave him, as opposed to the Clinton campaign, which was really traditional and ground game big data. Do you think by that precedent that you'll see a move towards a sort of Trump kind of campaign strategy, saying controversial things get television time, or will it go back to back to basics, where we do ground games and buying ads and such?
I think it's a very good observation you made. I think that a lot of that is going to be determined by who's running. One, if Trump runs again, it's going to be Trump being Trump again. He's going to play controversial things because that's the game he knows how to play. And that is his level of thinking. He's a TV guy. He's as much an entertainer as anything else, which is why he sits up watching TV all day. I mean, have you ever heard of a head of state that does policy by TV and tweets his immediate reaction? And so if he's there, it's going to be that again. Now, whether the media allows the free ride or not is questionable. If he's not there, there are very few people that can come in that party that does what he does like that. And I don't know that the Democrats have any. So it might go back to what was a traditional campaign. A lot of it's going to be determined by the players in the race. But, you know, Trump comes from New York like I do. I've known Trump 35, 40 years, marched on him, fought him, and knew when he turned Democratic and supportive of him. It takes people that understand that environment to handle Trump. But Trump was something that traditional politics never saw, so they didn't know how to deal with it. And I think that some of us that are used to those kind of bigger-than-life New York theatrical characters would have handled it differently. I mean, like I watched tonight, I never, after 2004, regretted not running for president again. Until the night that he debated Hillary Clinton and was stalking behind her. I really wished that he had done that on the stage with me. Because we got into the election that night. She just didn't know what to do. I mean, what did anybody do? That you got this big man just walking around stalking like you're in a subway in Brooklyn. But I wouldn't know how to handle it because I grew up on subways in Brooklyn.
What do you think the connection is between racism at home in America and American foreign policy?
I think that there is a basic connection because I think that, first of all, those that sit at the top of any given administration, if their worldview is biased at home, then their worldview will be biased in terms of how they deal with global politics. I think that when you have people grounded in that they either allow or support criminal justice inequality, racial profiling, they will also then have the same kind of profiling globally where everybody of a certain religious is a terrorist and everybody that is of a certain way of life is a threat. So I think that you cannot separate people's thought process, even though it may manifest itself in this way.
Gentleman with glasses there.
Thank you for coming, by the way. I'm also from the States. I know you mentioned it about Charlottesville. I actually have a question pertaining to the monuments, and I know that you made a statement about the Jefferson Memorial as well, and that you believe that the memorial should be taken down due to the fact that Jefferson owned slaves. So I was wondering what your stance is on the Confederate monuments that still exist today, and what should be done about that.
What I said about Jefferson, just for clarity, I was on Charlie Rose show, and he asked me how did I feel about Jefferson. I said, as a taxpayer, I have a problem with paying to honor someone who owned slaves. I didn't say that I would necessarily lead the march on Jefferson like I would lead, but Jefferson was an American president. But I think it should be understood why we wouldn't want to do that unless they acknowledge what he did in that memorial. If you're honoring presidents, fine, and say he was the president, we give a monument for him, but he owned slaves and what he did was wrong. But there is no reason to have monuments honoring Confederate generals and Confederate presidents because they were not American presidents. They fought to overthrow the United States government of America. So why are you honoring people that tried to overthrow the government and enforce slavery? There's a difference. And I think that it is, I don't know any country in the world that honors the people with public monuments that tried to overthrow them.
When Trump was being elected, one of the things that he was actually being quite smart when he was running for election, that being a businessman, he was able to manipulate people to believe what they wanted to hear. So, and one of those was actually the evangelicals in America, where actually 90% of evangelicals voted for Trump. So I was curious, with you being a reverend, what your viewpoints would be for what Trump actually stands for and what Christianity would stand for in comparison to the...
I think that it is one of the more disappointing things that I saw, which is why, just last month, about 4 weeks ago, I called for 1,000 ministers march on Washington, and we ended up with 5,000 came, and 300 rabbis. And because I think what he has done is not only lowered the standard of the Oval Office, he's lowered the standards of the evangelicals. How does an evangelical preacher come out now and preach about anything when you have a president now that has flagrantly just lied, deceived, called people, women, as I said, bitches. Every sin that evangelicals preach, he commits public. I don't understand how you go to Sunday school and tell people you were with Trump. He has violated all of that. And I think that he played to what they perceived as their base, this red meat, us against them. The Mexicans are taking your job. The blacks have gotten too much. And the undercurrent of, we don't want them in charge. Look at this guy who was from Kenya and not really hear that he was president. The undercurrent backlash vote to Obama. That's what he played to. And that was the base of a lot of the evangelicals that showed they really, in many cases, didn't believe what they were preaching. Because how do you do that if you really believe in the tenets of Christianity? And I think a lot of us that are believers in Christianity have to repair that and confront it, which is why I call that marching, which is why we're doing a lot there. We've got to have a serious debate on what Christianity is and is not when they've made these kind of allowances. What made me call that March of Ministers is I looked one day and saw these evangelicals in the White House the day he was leading the campaign to end the Affordable Care, which gave 23 million people their health care that never had health insurance. And the evangelicals were in his office with their hands on him, like praying for him, like he was a sick old man needing some relief, blessing him for taking millions of people's health care when he didn't even have a plan on what to do for them. How do you get up and preach Jesus to heal, blessing a guy that's taking away people's health care?
Gentleman at the back there.
So we've seen repeatedly how Trump can be unpredictable and chaotic and verbally violent several times over the course of his administration. So do we resign ourselves to the fact that, okay, this is an unpredictable and chaotic president, or do we continue to try and hold him to the standards of the office that he has repeatedly failed to meet?
I think we've got to hold the country to the standards. I think that if you try to hold him accountable, you will be wasting your time. I think you've got to challenge the country on, is this really what we want? And start preparing. We're a few months away now from the midterm elections for Congress, and then on from there, he can take his legs out from under him with the Congress next year, and then on to the presidential election. Do I think that Trump can be turned around? No. Like I said, I know him. Whatever works for him, he's going to keep doing it. But I think the country can be turned around. Wyatt T. Walker, who was a minister and was the executive director in the early 60s for Martin Luther King, he ended up the first chairman of the board of our organization, National Action Network. And he told me, he said, Al, when we wanted to confront segregation, we combed the South, finding the right town to go to. And we decided to go to Birmingham. And I said, why did you decide to go to Birmingham? That's where they ended up with the fire hoses and the dogs, and Dr. King wrote the famous letter from a Birmingham jail. He said, we wanted to go to a city that we knew the sheriff would fight us, and that he would be as belligerent and as ruthless as anybody. And if we could put that in everyone's living room on television, they would see how bad segregation was. Trump is the perfect foil for us to organize, because he will get out there and call people names, and he will act ugly. And he will, what you've got to do is be able to use his unpredictability against him. It's almost like a martial artist. You use your own weight against him, rather than sit there and act like you're at the movies watching the next episode. Let him react and use that act for people to say, this is outrageous. This is below the dignity of the office. This is not what we want. Trump will beat himself if you give him the room and keep the spotlight on him.
All right, I think gentleman there.
For the greater part of the last 500 years, Black people have been trying to integrate not only America, but the Western world as a whole. To what extent do you think this is out of a genuine longing for racial harmony, or is it simply stuck on some border or oppression?
I think that a lot of people have misinterpreted some of those moves. When the move happened in the South, around civil rights in the late 50s, when I was going early 60s, the movement was around desegregation, where we said, we pay $1 to get on the bus, we can ride where everybody else rides. If we are going to pay taxes and you have public toilets, we should be able to use the toilet like anybody else. It was around, you should not have laws that make us pay the same taxes, but we can't enjoy what everybody else does. Many came in, some well-intentioned, some maneuvering the movement, and made it about integrating the others. We did not need the validation of others. There was nothing divine about sitting on the toilet next to somebody else. It was about, if I'm going to pay for the toilet, why do you have a separate toilet for me? If I'm going to pay for the colleges, why can't I go? And I think that what we must do is have the same self-pride in building our communities, but have access to the resources, the finances in terms of access to capital, and the same protection under the law, equal protection under the law as everybody else. It's not about whether racial harmony is good, but racial justice is what is mandatory. So whether anyone loves me or not, I can't control. But they should not be able to hurt me without being held accountable, and they should not be able to deny me from doing what I want to do to support my family like they do to support theirs. So I think the moment the goal is, oh, let's come by and love each other, that is a goal we may never get. Let's get to, if you hurt me, you go to jail like I can go to jail if I hurt you. And if I got a business plan, I get access to capital like you can. Equal access and equal protection of the law is the goal.
Do you think it would be better for the US to stop doing racial statistics, like in France, for example?
To stop start doing racial statistics? No, because to not do racial statistics is to say that we trust corporations and colleges to do the right thing. The only way we can measure if they are being inclusive is if there's data. So if I go to the University of so-and-so and say, I'm told you don't have enough blacks or Latinos on campus, they say, we don't take statistics no more, that's not true. Only way you can measure it is with that.
Gentleman there.
Thank you. Would it be possible to move the podium back?
Sounds like he wants a clear shot at me.
I spent most of my adult life in the South and in California working in the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement. I have two short questions. In the last 20 years, it seems to me that the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement, and the peace movement have become top-heavy with payrolls and financial contributions. I want you to comment on that, if there's any validity in it. And secondly, in the last 20 years, there's been virtually zero involvement by people in the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement and the peace movement to get involved in the political arena, where after all, power is made. I wonder if you could comment on that.
I think, let me take the last one first. I think that the last 2 decades, maybe even quarter of a century, there's been a decline in civil rights and peace activists in getting involved in the political process. I think that's undisputable. I think that you're absolutely right. I think that what has happened, unfortunately to me, is that a lot of people have become more caught up in their echo chamber than organized. Some of the good and the bad of technology is that now you talk to your Facebook friends and think you're talking to the world. You just put something out and everybody gives you likes and you say, wow, I gotta follow. No, you don't. That's people that talk to you. That ain't the congressional district. That's not the local district. So I think that we're caught up in a lot of self-aggrandizing activities. And that, to me, does not make them do the hard work of organizing. You've got to organize and get people in politics if you're going to be successful that may not subscribe to your Instagram page or your Twitter page. And I think that becomes a difficult and a different task for some. So nobody cares if you've got 40,000 Facebook friends, as long as they're not in their district and as long as they don't vote, they're proud. But the minute you say, we're going to build up in terms of these political offices, now you're a threat because that's where power is. How did they stop the war in Vietnam? They started electing anti-war people. And the minute we stop doing that, at the end of the day, they just wait out our rallies and our demonstrations because you're not going after power. In terms of the civil rights and peace and anti-war groups being top-heavy, I think that that's true. All of us have started getting a lot of budgets that we couldn't meet, which makes you dependent on outside interests that want to bear down. I think it's funny you said it. I've been trying to get people that we need to reorder and start dealing with how do we raise the money from the bottom up. How do your membership, how do you use technology there in a fair way to where you're depending on your $5 or $10 like Bernie Sanders did, rather than having it come from a major corporation.
Do you think members of the alt-right movement or neo-Nazi groups have a right to speak on academic campuses, and how can activists and individuals who are opposed to their ideology converse with them? Is there a way to converse with them? Are they worth talking to, or are they lost?
I mean, I think that people have the right to speak. I think people have the right to be heard. But I also think people that are paying tuition or the taxpayers are funding it have the right to say that I object and that they should be able to state their objection. I think that what is interesting to me about the alt-right is they claim free speech, but then don't want to extend it when it's the other way around. So they will ask me, Reverend Al, don't you think ABC should be allowed to speak at Berkeley? Okay, yeah, that's free speech. But Kaepernick should not be able to free speech right down the road, no. You can't have it both ways. So either we're going to let everybody express themselves, or we're going to decide on the boundaries, and then who decides the boundaries and who enforces them. I, for one, believe that everybody should have the right to say what they want to say, including guys that protest you coming on campus because they're paying for it. They have that right too. And which is, if you're not tough enough to take opposition, then you ought not be involved.
Reverend, do you think that the decline in church attendance, specifically in the black community, will have a negative impact on the continuing fight for racial equality?
I think that there has not been the decline in black church attendance as much as the shift. I think that we have more mega churches now that are drawing. The traditional black churches have declined. But you've got people going to church now like they used to. They just go to a different model church, and many of them go to church online. One of the most frustrating things for a lot of ministers is that people lay up in the bed and watch church online. And, but they're still involved in it. The question is whether you can activate them. But you have several religious networks, and I think that the communications has been revolutionized differently. So people don't go to the traditional church, but they still worship.
Do you think that Donald Trump is damaging the reputation of the Republican Party enough that Democrats should hesitate to impeach him if they get the opportunity in case Mike Pence brings respectability back?
Well, I think that if Mueller comes with some concrete, impeachable criminal evidence, they'd have no choice but to go forward. And I think that Mueller would not hide it if he does have it. But I definitely think that Pence is a greater threat to try to defeat than Trump. I think that Pence acts more presidential. He is less frightening, and his politics is to the right. To me, he is far more dangerous in terms of policy than Trump, and is packaged well. But I think that it would be more difficult in terms of just political optics if he was the candidate in 20 than Trump.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on cultural appropriation?
On,
Cultural appropriation.
I mean, I think that, that's a broad question. A lot of it is going to do the appropriating. I think part of the problem with cultural appropriation is it empowers the wrong people to interpret how we're defining the culture and therefore who's going to be in charge of how it's distributed. So that's kind of broad.
Do you think it's time for America to guarantee the right to freedom of speech in privately owned places like Facebook or YouTube or the internet in general? That although technically privately owned and don't have responsibility to guarantee freedom of speech to users, but in the modern age have become the epicenters of public debate in a way that, say, universities were half a century ago.
Well, I mean, when you say the government guaranteeing freedom of speech in terms of the social media entities like Facebook and others, I think that the government should guarantee it. And the reason why is that government regulates. They still have to deal with FCC and government regulation, and I think they should have to follow the tenets of the country. Now, does that mean that they are not accountable for things like manipulating elections, like they claim bogus companies came forward that were really Russian fronts? That's a difference than freedom of speech. So I think that freedom of speech the government should absolutely protect. But I think private companies have a responsibility to know who they're doing business with.
Trump campaign presidency was surrounded by unprecedented levels of white supremacy and white nationalism. Do you think that actually marks an increase in resurgence of racism in America, or more a revelation of what's been there?
I think it's more of a revelation. I think that those people and those elements were already there. I think that the danger is that he's normalized it, and he's raised it to a presidential level where it's accepted. When I think of this president making a moral equivalent with neo-Nazis in Sharpton, openly marching with torches, saying Jews will not replace us, and standing up for a general who tried to overthrow the U.S. government, and he acts like that's all right by normalizing and equating them with the counter-protesters. I think that's what we've never seen before. I don't think he started them. I think he gave them credibility and gave them a presidential kind of level of acceptance, and that's what's frightening.
So, President Obama's election was considered to be an absolute watershed in race relations, but since then we have things like Mike Brown, Tanner Rice, Eric Garner, a variety of instances in just black men. What do you think is needed? So, like, we have what seemed to be a watershed, didn't actually bring change. What do you think would be necessary to bring a more substantial change within race relations in the United States?
I think it's a good question. I had a lot of access to President Obama, and I was involved at the forefront of the cases you mentioned. And I think that what the reality is that if we're going to have real change, we're going to have to put in the time and effort over a period of time, which we began doing. We've got President Obama to appoint that commission on policing. They had started with the Cameron police. They had started consent decree. You've got to change how policing is done. And we started turning that corner, and if his successor had continued that, we could have, I think, led towards some concrete change. I think it has been aborted now. But I think that you've got to remember when I got the call on Trayvon, I never heard of Trayvon. We helped make it a national issue. And I'm on the ground in Sanford, starting the first rally, when I talked to Obama on the phone about what was going on. We never had a president that would even identify with that. That's not long after that he on his own came out and said Trayvon could have been his son. So the same happened. I preached Michael Brown's funeral in Ferguson. We were there the 2 days after it happened, and the others. But how do you change it when you don't have, when you have an explosive reaction, but you don't have the people committed to the long run? The mayor got reelected. And we told them, well, we don't know about the big organizations coming in. The families who called us in. But then after you run all the resources out, are you going to organize? The mayor got reelected. And we didn't indict that cop. We were able to, in New York, for example, we came out against an issue called stop and frisk, where police just arbitrarily stop disproportionately young black men searching for no reason. Study was done, ACLU and other groups proved it. We hit the streets, National Action Network, my group and union, and we came out against stop and frisk. A mayor's race was up. A black candidate who was the city controller, who I knew since I was 18 years old. We grew up together. His father used to be the lawyer for the church I grew up in. I endorsed a white guy named Bill de Blasio against him because de Blasio supported us on ending stop and frisk, and this black candidate wouldn't. And we ended stop and frisk. You've got to be willing to not only do the rallies and the marches, but hang in there and make the political changes and hold them accountable. And sometimes you've got to make hard choices against your own friends.
I think we'll finish up in the next 5 minutes, so we'll take, say, 2 questions. So that gentleman there and that gentleman there. So we'll start with your question.
In the future, do you see yourself focusing on mostly American issues, or are there any issues abroad that you think really deserve your
Do I see myself what?
focusing on mostly American issues? Or are there any
No, I would like to broaden a lot of what I do in international politics and international affairs, because the world, given technology and given how the economy is working, the world is so interconnected you cannot fight just one nation. You've got to have the interconnected kind of involvement. I've done some work in England. I mean, from Roland Adams' murder that we came up organized all the way to Operation Black Hole. But I intend to spend a lot more time on global work.
It's just, as the guy over there mentioned about Barack Obama and the election, how it's sort of watching on. Do you think that through all your work and stuff like that, that it lived up to the expectations of the African American community, and that with Trump, you just sort of seen a backlash from basically the white elites in America who felt that it was time to remind Black America that they're basically there to be in their class?
I think that Ralph Ellison, the famous novelist, said there's a boomerang effect. Every time you make progress, there's going to be a boomerang. And I think that Donald Trump was the backlash to the election and re-election of Barack Obama. He played on that emotion. He sent every dog whistle signal, make America great again. Well, what do you mean by that? Great when we were in the back of the bus. And I think he played on that. And let's remember now, he still lost the popular vote. But he was able to, in enough of the electoral states, play on that, and everybody got caught off guard because they did not take him seriously enough. They did not organize their base enough. Hillary Clinton lost Michigan by 20,000 votes. They could have got those votes in Detroit if somebody had gone in there and organized and really worked and acted as though that what was at stake was health care and civil rights. I think the Democrats were too busy planning the inauguration that they skipped the election.
I suppose, given the fact that I'm sitting here, I might take the liberty of asking you a final question. A lot of people, when they look at Obama and his sort of campaigning strategy, would say that he would do a lot in his election that was coming up, but would not do a lot with midterms, or actually mobilizing the votes that he got to build the movement. Would you consider that to be something which is true, or maybe the biggest disappointment of his presidency?
I think that President Obama would support some candidates that was in line with his thinking. Let's not forget that a lot of the Democrats were not supporting his policies. When he had to fight with Democrats about the Affordable Care, he had to fight with Democrats around a lot of the issues that we were pushing. And he beat the Democratic establishment to defeat Hillary Clinton. So a lot of people wanted him to come in and help them after they had tried to do everything to hurt them. So I didn't buy that because I knew a lot of the people that were involved were not trying to get reelected or elected to push his agenda. They were, in many ways, nemesis to them. Those that supported him and worked with him, he was always successful. I mean, he came to our convention, National Action, several times. I think that a lot of people felt that he owed them something just because they were Democrats, not because they were standing for the principles and policies that he believed. And And I was one that would always say to them, I don't believe you owe